What's up, everybody? This is Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, HawgSports.com. Today on HawgSports Live, we're going to talk a little bit about this basketball team with their 48-point victory over Rice. That was certainly interesting to see. We're going to talk about the importance of this football game, how it pertains to Chad Morris, Ty Storey coming back into town. Keith Grayson and Pete Roulier are both going to join us at the same time. That ought to be interesting. All that and more on HawgSports Live. So, pretty much everything's wrapped up as far as our media availability with Chad Morris and the football team. That usually ends on Wednesday with his last interview. You know, he's not a guy that comes off as a coach who's like coaching for his job or something. And I think a lot of people look at this game and say, like, you know, this is a must-win game. You know, and he'll say that every game's a must-win game. Even at the press conference yesterday, you know, he's the same guy as he always is in the press conference. But I think a lot of people look at this and say, you know, if Ty Storey walks out of that building with one SEC win and Chad Morris has none, that could look really bad for him. So it's a weird paradox because we've never been in this kind of territory where here we are less than 2 years in with the coach. There hasn't been a lot of signs of improvement. In fact, not really any, except for it looks like the roster is a lot better. And, you know, through recruiting, that stuff has been good. But on the field, performance hasn't been very good. Maybe it's attributed just to poor play at quarterback, young offensive line with a lot of injuries, a lot of things like that. I think a lot of fans think it runs a lot deeper than that, and I'm probably with you on that. So let's look at Saturday or Wednesday's practice was weird. I mean, I'm looking over there, and you know, the scout team guys go down there, and it's Ben Hicks and Nick Starkel with the scout team, and then you've got Jack Lindsey imitating Ty Storey. I mean, it was just kind of weird to see that. And then KJ Jefferson and John Stephen Jones working with the first offense. I mean, you just didn't expect to see that in week 10 of the season. And then on top of that, I'm looking down there and I'm thinking that Hicks and Starkel are, you know, just going to be taking reps side by side. And then Hicks leans down and puts his hand in the ground and runs a pass route. He's playing tight end, scout team tight end, which is just, never would have thought I'd see that. Anyway, we'll talk a little bit more about that with Pete and Keith and those guys. And, of course, take your questions. I want to remind everybody there's plenty of ways to watch and listen. Facebook Live, always streaming live there. Go ahead and be sure to follow the page. Throw us a thumbs up if you like the content. Going to upload to YouTube right after this. Be sure to follow that page, subscribe to that page, and hit the notifications bell so you know anytime that we upload a new video. And throw us a thumbs up if you like the content also. Available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, just about anywhere you get your favorite podcast. If you're on Apple Podcasts, be sure to throw us a 5-star review. Say something nice about us. We definitely want that to pop up anytime that people search for Arkansas Razorbacks on Apple Podcasts. So a lot of ways to watch and listen. You can subscribe at HawgSports.com right now for let's see, what is the offer? It's $9.95, but you get CBS All Access for free, which is a $99 value right now. So you can sign up for an annual subscription, a monthly subscription. Either way you do it, you're going to get CBS All Access, and that's going to stick with you as long as you are with HawgSports.com. So if you're with us for the next 10 years, then you'll get CBS All Access for the next 10 years, and that's a $99 annual value. So that's like, you know, almost $1,000 right there you would save for CBS All Access. So a heck of a deal right there, not to mention all the stuff that you're going to get, insider information, recruiting coverage, VIP recruiting coverage from Danny West and all that stuff. And also sign up for the newsletter if you're a more casual fan. You just want to know what's happened out of press conferences, anytime there's breaking news and things like that. And we'll send you all of our free content via newsletter each morning and then when there is any breaking news. So a lot of ways to enjoy HawgSports.com, but it's certainly thank all of you guys for joining us here right now. So as I said, practice Wednesday just kind of looks, I don't know, it looked just a little interesting to me just seeing that. You know, Devion Warren's going to be out. They've still got some issues on the offensive line. Looks like Austin Capps is going to play. But I wanted to get more into, I mean, we know what's going on with Arkansas. It's been a struggle, obviously. But let's look at what Ty Storey has done so far. So Western Kentucky is 5-4 this season. They've lost a couple of games in a row. Ty's numbers, he's 141 of 202 passing, which is 69.8% completion percentage. For those wondering, that would be a record percentage in Arkansas history. For 1,477 yards, 7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. That's a 137.7 rating. Last year at Arkansas, so he was 141 at 202 for 1,477 last year, or this year. Last year he was 143 of 250, which is 57.2% for 1,584 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions, a 116.9 efficiency rating. So obviously over in Conference USA, the competition isn't as stiff, but his numbers are definitely better. As a team, they like to pass the ball. They are 5th in Conference USA in passing right now, 252.8 yards per game right now. So a solid passing attack. Defense is really where this team stands out. Number 2 in scoring defense, allowing just 20.7 points a game. 3 in rushing defense, 125.8 a game. Passing defense, they give up a little bit more. They're 4th, though, 192 per game. And then total defense, this is the second best total defense in Conference USA. So the second best scoring defense, second best total defense in Conference USA right now. So they've got a lot of veterans on defense. I think John Chavis said it was like 7 or 8 redshirt juniors that are starting for them on defense. That was kind of in response to, just asking him about. Chavis is kind of difficult to get anything out of because he makes it clear that entering the press conference that he's not going to talk about individual players. And then when we ask him about general sweeping questions, why the defense is so bad, he says he's not going to make excuses. So, I just don't know. What are we supposed to ask? We just want to know why things are so bad. And I understand that they're young and stuff, but that's still no excuse for giving up 460 yards of rushing against Mississippi State. And it's no excuse for the defense being as bad as it is right now, just going down repeatedly 17-0 to one team after another. Part of that's on the offense. I get it. But, Arkansas football is in a sad state, and it's a weird paradox where they are right now, just because we've never been in a situation where it's year 2. Well, it's maybe with Jack Crow ages ago, but that was a different era. That was just a different time. But usually in year 2, a coach is showing significant signs that things are moving forward. And there have been signs in terms of recruiting. There just hasn't been anything on the field. And then with some of those recruits, like KJ Jefferson, I think most people want to see him out there, see what he can do. But like Traylon Burks, why is he not more heavily involved? And I've said before, if Houston Nutt was the coach of this team, Traylon Burks might be playing quarterback for him. He literally might be. But I was encouraged by a little bit I saw from KJ. I know that he can still be erratic just from stuff I've seen in practice. He's not as accurate in practice as a guy like Nick Starkel. Nick has definitely proven that he's not going to get it done, at least not this year. But what you see from Nick in practice is just the same ball every single time, right here, every time. And with KJ, it's going to be a little more erratic. It just is. He's reworked some things with his throwing motion, his mechanics, his footwork, all that stuff are things that they've had to work on. But what he brings is the pure athleticism. And when you have an offensive line that isn't very good and they're banged up with injuries and stuff, then that can go a long way for you. Interested to see how things play out with John Stephen Jones starting and then KJ coming in. What kind of package? How early do we see him? Definitely don't want to see it be like some kind of fourth quarter thing, like the game is over and just put him in. Don't want to see that. Would like to see him in the first quarter. Maybe it's an alternating type of thing. Maybe it's alternated by plays. You don't really see that as much in football anymore, but there was a time where quarterbacks would go in alternating, bringing in the play with them. So let's see. What's the activity like here? I want to go ahead and tell you to get your questions in. Get your questions in if you've got them from me or Keith or Pete. 224 people on here right now, and we are 10 minutes in. So that's about the time that I told Keith and Pete that I would get to them. So let's go ahead and turn the direction to those guys. Hopefully they pick up here. First ring.
What up, Fitty?
I've got a Keith Grayson. You're first. Pete, you're second. Keith was first.
What's up, Trey Fitty?
So the real Trey Fitty. The real Trey Fitty. Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Is it Tree Fitty or Trey Fitty?
Tree Fitty. Tree Fitty. I've actually got a lot of friends. So there was a fake Twitter account that came up from our buddy Greenwood, I believe. But, yeah, he didn't spell Eric Musselman's name right, which was a dead giveaway because I never would have done that.
Yeah, and you don't know basketball either, so why would you report on basketball?
I do know basketball.
Sheesh, man.
So
No, you
Don't bite the hand that feeds, Keith.
No, you got to listen to Drive Time, but he gets called out on Drive Time constantly for not knowing.
I do, but I do know it. You know what that is? It's like people will call in and they'll say that, "Hey Trey, you know football. Why are you talking about basketball? Like you can only know one thing. Like I mean, like I've watched Razorback basketball my entire life. Been to most games of the last 17 years or so since I've been covering Razorback athletics." But people are like, well, you can only know one thing. But I don't necessarily cover Razorback basketball recruiting. Leave that up to Danny. But, I mean, the idea that I have no idea what's going on with basketball is completely absurd. I would stand toe-to-toe with most of those callers who call in and try to call me out on that.
Still waiting on you to fight a caller. Like meet him in a Sonic in Alma.
It's interesting. Like people will talk trash on, social media and stuff, but really, you're probably, Keith, the only person that would dare say anything like that to my face.
we had a spat, and we settled it. It was a very awkward. We did the brewery tour in Fort Collins.
Yeah.
Of Fat Tire, and Sorensen set all that up. And that was awkward.
For you?
Yeah, you're always bigger in person than I anticipate.
Oh, okay, so that's what it is.
I was like, is he 6'3"? Let's measure his reach real fast. And also in Colorado, I'm a little calmer for some reason.
Oh yeah, I bet. Sometimes people get me. I think they get me confused. They think like all bald people look the same. They'll get me confused for Bo. And I saw a post one time. He's like, I saw Trey the other day, little fella. And I'm like, I'm easily over 6 foot tall, So, Pete and Keith, you guys have become fast friends over the last few years. Over the last, few months, I should say.
You know how you can tell if I like somebody if I dog them.
Yeah.
Like I'm that guy that I just like to rib people. So
well, you certainly do that at Pete. Pete, what are your thoughts about? How does that make you feel when Keith does stuff like that to you?
Man, he's just a little sheep. Like I have met Keith before, and like, how he's talking about, man, you are so much bigger in person. For Keith, this big personality calling in on the radio and stuff. It was like, man, this guy is just tiny, just a little gnat. That's kind of how I felt. It was a little bit of the opposite of what he felt about you.
Yeah.
Pete's 5'6".
Dude, these are not facts. How are you going to come on here and say I'm 5'6"?
You wear risers.
Right. What are you talking about, dude?
Who's taller, Trey?
This is such an
John Stephen Jones or Pete? Really?
Actually, we did this. Trey knows for a fact I'm taller than John Stephen Jones.
Yes.
Back to back.
You are.
Yeah, no, back to back, I'm way taller than him. I think you guys see that's a good measuring stick for our listeners. John Stephen Jones is about the same size as Keith Grayson.
I do think that John Stevens is about 5'9". And that's just from like other people I've known what their height is walking. I think I said he's like 5'8" at best, but I think he's 5'9". He's definitely not 5'11".
I'm 5'10"3/4 with my shoes off.
We got the 3/4 part.
Jeez, no way. But John Stephen Jones definitely does stand out as like the smallest quarterback by a large margin.
Yeah, he's definitely not the biggest quarterback. He's probably got I would say all the quarterbacks have a bigger arm than John Stephen, even Jack Lindsey. But something that people have always told me who were able to watch more practice than I've been able to is that John Stephen always seems to move the ball down the field better than the other quarterbacks. And we've kind of seen that. Yeah.
That's all it's about. Everybody can rip on somebody's size and whatever. It's about the points you put up or the notches you put in your belt. You know what I'm saying?
Right. If it was all about size and arm strength and stuff, then Danny Wuerffel never would have won a Heisman Trophy.
Right. Well,
and Tom Brady wouldn't be the best quarterback in NFL history.
There you go. It's like he makes all the right reads, is what Morris says, and that's the way it's looked. I mean, he's a smart quarterback, and also the legs. I mean, it's not much, but he's not afraid to run the ball, and he gets the job done.
Yeah. Who's the future of this team though at quarterback?
It's KJ Jefferson without a doubt.
Do you think that Chad Morris has made a mistake not starting KJ?
I think John Stephen earned the job. I mean, he's gone in, I think, maybe I guess Alabama and then this last game against Mississippi State, and he's done all the right things. So it'd be hard to just throw KJ in over him, even though that's what everybody wants to see. I think that's probably the right decision.
Yeah.
I think John Stevens earned at least a start. I mean, one start for his Razorback career, maybe. I think that's kind of what it is, but maybe KJ probably going to play a little bit more.
Keith, what do you think?
I'm not a fan of the 4-quarterback system. I wish we'd settle something at some point. This is the inception of it, I guess. Yeah. It's not really panning out.
Never been done before.
I'd like to see them all on the field at the same time. That's
offensive innovator.
Yeah, let's go quads to the boundary with Traylon at quarterback and all 4 other quarterbacks to the boundary and see what happens.
Ben Hicks at tight end. He's been working some.
There you go. He's got the face for it. So, no, I think I like what I saw from KJ. I definitely thought Traylon made a play on the ball on that back shoulder fade. And if you go back and look at how he caught it on that dude's helmet, if he turns around and he plays in phase and makes a play on the ball, it could have been a pick going the other way. But
that's a pass interference penalty, by the way, that wasn't called.
I don't know. I'm a DB's coach, so the face guarding is allowed. I don't know how much contact he was made by pushing him out. But then, so if you go back to the swing pass that he threw out of the backfield to a Monty Spivey that sailed to the third row of the stands. That's what we're talking about with the consistency.
I've been saying that so much, and people will say so much that KJ's got to be in, he's got to be the star. In retrospect, maybe you didn't think that Ben Hicks and Starkle just wouldn't play very well, given their backgrounds. But that's the thing you noticed with KJ in practice is he'll throw just a laser beam, and then it's just like, whoa, where's that going? And I think a lot of that has to do, as I mentioned earlier, just with a lot of reworking his mechanics and, just kind of being a freshman, learning some things. Maybe you're thinking a little bit too much about stuff. But I'm anxious to see the athleticism he brings. With John Stephen, obviously I agree. You don't take anything away. But the situations that he's been put in, they're 41-0 down to Alabama. That's not the same game as you're starting out. You're down significantly against Mississippi State. Just a different kind of situation that he was put in. Maybe not the same type of pressure that would be on his shoulders or the same kind of pressure that would be coming at him.
Well, we can argue about John Stephen Jones or KJ, who you go to, but I think Morris made the right decision by just leaving Nick Starkle or Ben Hicks off of the depth chart completely because –
plenty of opportunities.
It's time to move on.
There's no bowl game. There's plenty of they've had plenty of opportunities to prove themselves, and it just hasn't worked. And I feel weird.
Sorry.
I just feel weird for Ben Hicks being down there running scout team tight end. I mean, that's just not what you envisioned for the guy in his last year of college football.
What's crazy? So there's definitely a lack of communication from Coach Morris, and I don't think he knows how to articulate what's going on with the overall plan. I guarantee you that they were thinking going into this, we're not mathematically eliminated from a bowl game, therefore we're going in trying to get all these wins to try to get to a bowl game to go on a run here. Mm-hmm. I guarantee you that's why they why they've stuck with Hicks this long and not gone over to these other guys because they think that that's their best bet to get to a bowl game up until the Mississippi State game. And then in the game, he had 3 or 4 4-and-outs in a row, and they're down 38-7, and then they make a switch. I mean, that or 38-10 or whatever it was, that I guarantee you that was the thinking going into it, but the lack of the reaction is what gets me, and that I can't defend it. I always try to play devil's advocate, so when everybody in the fan base is like, fire him, get him out of here, and coming out with pitchforks and everything, I'm trying to say, well, let's look at it from a logical standpoint of where's the money coming from and how we're going to hire a new coach and all this stuff. Now I can't defend it anymore. The guy is just the in-game coaching is so bad, and their reaction time is so slow to things that are developing on the field that it's indefensible. The crazy thing is in all this too is the defensive line hasn't really done much, and Steve Caldwell's a badass coach. So has he you keep on looking at these different coaches that are getting their position groups beat up on. I mean, has he forgot how to coach? Like Steve Caldwell is one of the best defensive line coaches we've ever had as a Razorback.
He may be the best defensive end coach in Arkansas history, considering the players that he's brought in here, sent to the NFL, and the productions he's had. Mainly with his first stint at Arkansas.
Right, and so you look at the production out of Bell, Soley, Clay. Clay's come on. Clay's pretty damn good. I think he'll replace a game next year at that 3-tech. But if you look at the production from the ends, it's non-existent. So that's where it's like, you look at the overall picture and then you get to a position group like that. I mean, what is going on? There has to be some sort of infighting or something behind the scenes with the staff, some indecisiveness. Maybe it's just a lack of leadership at the top.
I mean, that's the same thing. Like, people can talk about, with whether Chad Morris should be retained or not, and you made a lot of examples both ways, but when you look at it, like, do you want to see Steve Caldwell go? I mean, do you want to see Justin Stepp or Jeff Traylor? I mean, those guys have developed pretty good reputations over the years and are all stud recruiters for you. And Barry Lunny too, yeah. So, basketball. You want to transition to basketball for a minute? We can come back to football, of course. But
I want to hear Pete's breakdown of the Western Kentucky offense and defense.
You want to hear that first? Let's go to basketball, because I think what most people are concerned about when it comes to Western Kentucky, just the overall, and which I went over, and then of course, Ty Storey coming to town. But I had football Tuesday, but I did watch the basketball game on TV. But Pete, you were at the basketball game. What did you think of the environment and just the overall play of Arkansas?
The environment was great. I don't know if it was the free canes that they were handing out to students, but they showed up and showed out. And man, the Merrick Musselman on the sidelines, I want to get you guys' take on all the coaches wearing polos at some point. That was kind of weird.
Yeah.
But it just felt a lot different. I mean, everyone was pumped up. I mean, it's the way it's supposed to be is, the first game under a new head coach, and he delivered too. That's what made it special, I feel like.
Well, with Musselman, with the polo, he wore that, I guess, his last year or two with Nevada, but he'd worn a suit before. But when I talked to him about it, we had a one-on-one or one-on-two interview with him, with me and Danny. He said that he felt like he could get away with that since they had such a good team, that he could get away with wearing a polo. But yeah, so
that's a boss move to wear on the first.
Yeah, I guess
first game.
Maybe he feels like they're going to be pretty good. They're going to be small, obviously. I mean, they're not a very big basketball team. Did you watch the game, Keith?
Yeah, it's the 13th time that they've doubled up an opponent's score since the inception of the three-point line. I don't care if the guy goes out with tassels on his nipples. Let him wear whatever he wants. Who cares? How is it a topic of conversation? He can't sit there. If he has to wear a polo or something that's, a stretch cotton or some sort of Nike fit polo, because he's out there playing defense while we're on a defensive possession. He's in a stance with his hand up, showing them what he wants done. I love it. Of course, if you lose, you kind of look like a fool doing it. But, I mean, he's coaching his ass off. I mean, that's what you want to see. You had Mike sit there, that would just smile at bad calls. He's going to get tossed from a game, and it's going to bring this team together closer. I like it. That is the way that I want to see somebody coach, where they're that involved in the game.
He knows how to handle. He knows how to handle referees, though. There's a good video. I think it's on YouTube about his time at Nevada, where he's talking about just how he handles referees, how he doesn't just complain about every single call and kind of makes his mark, something he learned from his dad. But I think he knows what he's doing when it comes to communicating with referees. But I love to see the energy. I mean, the guy's super high energy. I don't understand how he drinks a Diet Pepsi at 8:00 at night with all that caffeine in it, and then goes to sleep. And he's one of those guys that gets up at like 5:30 in the morning and works out for 2 hours. I don't understand how he does that. Because if I drink caffeine after 4, I'm like up all night. But he's got a lot of energy.
We've said it before on the show. He's definitely a kooky guy. I would probably urge Razorback fans not to get too hyped up. I know that they understand, and Arkansas is smart fans, but man, not to just completely crap on Rice, but they were not a very good basketball team at all.
Yeah.
For Arkansas to see, maybe there's some people out there that think that. I mean, to out rebound Rice the way they did, that's not going to happen often. 45 rebounds compared to 27. I mean, that's I mean, if you do that every game, I think Arkansas wins a lot of games, but that's simply not going to happen in the SEC.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing too, is like how many times, if it's an effort thing, can they get up for every game the way they got it for that game? Can they be consistent with the effort throughout the season? That's something that's not just, I think the talent's there, and I think they're going to be able to put up some points, but on the defensive and rebounding effort, it's got to be. I just don't know if they can, stay on that sort of plane the entire season.
Mm-hmm.
And not getting Vanover was absolutely huge. I mean, that would have done wonders for this team.
Yeah.
It's the most Arkansas thing ever. He has
the
best case.
You knew it was going to be a day of
Stupid.
decision too, and then of course the suspension with Reggie Chaney just makes you even smaller.
Yeah.
Isaiah Joe with 24 points. Mason Jones 32 points. Jalen Harris with 10 points, 2 of 2 from 3-point range. His shot actually looked a little bit better. It looked a little bit better. Yeah, you wouldn't know this, but I play basketball all the time. And I've always been a big fundamental guy. And Harris has always had this cock back thing with his shot, and it's still there a little bit, but it looks like it's reduced. And that's something else we talked with Coach Musselman about, just reworking players' shooting mechanics and stuff. And he said, if a guy's not shooting well, then we absolutely go in and correct some things. So I think they've done that with Jalen Harris a little bit. But that would be big if they can get some consistent three-point shooting from him. So
I'm just picturing Trey taking charges and setting screens in a pickup game.
Well, it's not like
Fayetteville
that.
Athletic Club.
Well, I think he plays.
I'm just hanging out behind the
Dawson.
three-point line.
Do you play with Dudley?
No, Dudley's up there walking though. He usually is up there walking while I'm down on the court playing.
Full Cardinals gear on, head to toe. He's
a lot of times at FAC, it's kids. It's like me and a bunch of kids, and he's like, "You need to go about 3:00. That's when all the old 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds play." I was like, "That's the crew I need to be with." So, what's going on in your life, Keith? What's been going on out in Arizona?
I just had an interview bringing on Brock Heyman's mom as an agent, and people may remember him. He unfortunately, he not to be a downer, he passed away a couple of years ago, but we're pretty close with that family. And
former Razorback,
former Razorback from Saguaro High School out here, which is a huge football factory, and trying to convert him from tight end to linebacker. Petrino and John L. Smith were out here recruiting him, and Brock told him to come on over, and nobody was answering the door on their in-home visit. So Petrino, I guess, boosted up John L. Smith, and they climbed his fence and came in through the back door. Really?
I've never heard that.
To get into his house. And then John L. Smith, I guess the way that they figured out that they were going to recruit him, they said, are you tough enough to play linebacker in the SEC? And before Brock could answer, John L. Smith punched him as hard as he could in his chest. And it was based on his reaction there, he looked at Petrino and was like, he's got it.
That's child abuse.
That's
that.
John L. Smith for you.
We broke up a little bit. Did you say that you had an enema?
No. That's not
what he said.
This is not a David Cross stand-up special. No,
one of my favorite stories that Danny West tells about Coach Toddy over at Ryzen. It's about toughness and being mean and stuff. And he says one day Coach Toddy was talking to all the players, and he's like, he had this dog, and he said the neighbor's dog would come over and steal, not the neighbor's dog, but this dog in the neighborhood come over and steal the food from his dog. And he goes, and his dad would tell him, he's like, well, that dog's just mean, he's just mean. And he goes, well, Daddy, ain't our dog mean? And he goes, yeah, but that dog's starving.
That's great.
Yeah, one of my favorites.
Keith, man, you're like that Uber driver that you get in and, you're with your friends, just trying to have a good night. And then, you get to the front seat and you go, hey, man, how's your day been? Just, trying to just say what's up, acknowledge the Uber driver. Yeah. And then you go, oh, well, I don't really want to get into it, but, last year my wife left
Spills his guts. And then by the end of the trip, he's like, hey, are you guys on MySpace?
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Actually, I think I could probably come in and grab a beer with y'all if you want.
Yeah, park the car.
Yeah, that guy.
I don't know. I'm Lyft Black, so I don't understand all these Uber terms.
So Lyft Black.
That's for the poors.
I've never taken I'm not signed up for Lyft. I've been in a Lyft.
All right. Well, it's a great show. I like having two of us on at the same time.
It's entertaining, a little different.
Trey always texts and he's like, "Hey, are you down for a 3-way at 11?" I respond back. It's like, this is a conference call, buddy. You're not. I don't know what kind of party this is, but wrong.
This is like the B- Hog Hustle.
B team.
Yep.
Welcome
I
to
like
the B
Hog
show.
Hustle, yeah. Honestly, you know what the best show on right now is that I listen to is Danny's solo segment on the HawgSports thing. That thing, you know how hard it is to carry that thing and not put people to sleep? Like, doing that by yourself is he kills it, man.
Yeah, Danny's like, dadgum, y'all. You know, yeah, so for people who don't know, Danny does a VIP recruiting podcast that we're still trying to figure out a name. If you guys got a name for that, then hit me up with ideas. I was thinking Danny West Recruiting Explosion or something like that. But he does a VIP recruiting podcast. It's only available to our subscribers on HawgSports.com, which is worth the $9.95 admission fee alone, just for all of that stuff. So
yeah, it's good stuff. Well, thanks for having me on again.
Yep.
I like coming on the show, especially like, you know, I feel like Pete and I were friends before when I was buying him all those drinks at Farrell's, and you know, like it was our first time to meet. We were sharing stories and everything, and then come to find out he hates me just because I made one joke about his virginity. Like that was the only time that he just sends me these like crazy text messages like he wants to fight me, and I don't know. I guess I just rub him the wrong way.
Yep, you got me. That's the one thing that you can't sit there and defend your virginity because it's so hard to do.
No, you can't be like, hey, I'm not a virgin.
Yeah, exactly. That's what makes me so mad. You know it. So, yeah, I don't like you anymore.
All right, fellas.
Well, just for the sake of the show, Western Kentucky has a top 25 defense and is coming in to win this thing. So
yeah, real quick, what are y'all predicting for this game Saturday?
93% of the money right now is on Western Kentucky in Vegas.
Yeah,
so
-1 and a hook, I think.
I think Arkansas is going to win by like 21 points. So I think we're going to win like 41-20. That's and I'm serious. I think it's the opposite. I know Trey doesn't pick them to win until they win. Yeah, but I think we're going to blow their doors
I can
off.
totally see that happening. Absolutely. What do you think, Pete?
I could see that happening too. It's Kentucky. They've won games this season, and Arkansas really hasn't. So yeah, it's going to be tough to pick Arkansas. But I think maybe John and Stephen Jones and KJ give them that dynamic, and then also give the whole team a boost. So I'll go with Arkansas.
It's the last home game, right? And if you guys remember last year, before they completely let go of the rope against Mississippi State and Missouri, they played LSU pretty tough at home the seniors' last day. You know, there was some fight there. So maybe that's something to think about. All right, fellas.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Arkansas.
All right. Appreciate you joining us. All right, everybody. Pete Roulier, Keith Grayson. Pete Roulier is our beat writer, covers basketball, football, baseball, and then Keith is just a friend of ours, has been around for a long time on HawgSports, really known him for probably a decade, provides a unique fan perspective. Always have a lot of fun with that. So I want to jump into some questions here, as we always try to do. We got about 8 minutes more. We'll go here. So Drew Bryant says, here's the difference between Must and Coach Chad Morris. The Must bus has fire in his gut. Josh Garr says, where do you think we'll end up? Recruiting rankings, is the 20s wishful thing? I mean, there's so many components to that. It's hard to say. Danny's got a breakdown, actually. I think it's a VIP story of where things could possibly end and also projecting how the class will end. But, I mean, it just depends. I mean, there's going to be changes with this coaching staff. You don't go through a season like this and don't see changes, and all that can impact how things shake out in recruiting, bringing coaches in who have certain connections. I mean, a lot of people think, things aren't just working out. So Donnie A. Butt says Trey is turning into a shrink. Sometimes I think about laying on the couch. Sometimes I've thought about just kind of laying down, like bringing a couch in here and just laying down and just kind of looking up into the sky and just like releasing all my frustrations on the other side of a shrink. Drew Bryant says Jones is a baller, plain and simple. We'll see. I think that he's got a lot of qualities in terms of moving the ball down. Not a lot of physical qualities, but sometimes there's more to it in being a quarterback. It's the hardest position to learn to evaluate because you can measure arm strength, you can measure speed and all that stuff, size, height, weight, all that stuff, but you just can't measure what's going on in there. And there's certain gamesmanships that are involved. Lynn Fryer says John Steven is 6'3" when he stands on his wallet. That's a good point. Will Kidd says, so John Steven Jones doesn't give you, where's that? I lost it. So John Steven Jones doesn't give you the best chance to win, yet he's earned a start. Come on. Well, I mean, that's to be determined whether or not he gives you the best chance to win. I mean, I think that most of us feel that KJ Jefferson is the best option, the guy that is the future of the program. However, I think going into the season, we felt that way that Nick Starkel was, and I think that's proven to be wrong. JT Cunningham says Donald W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium equals Jerry's World East. Donnie Butts says, I don't want KJ to play against LSU. He will get killed. Can't have that attitude. Can't have that mentality. Kevin Seaman says, I think John Steven Jones has earned the start. He has played consistently well when he has been in the game, moved the ball, and gotten to the end zone. I think they alternate possessions and both get valuable time and an equal opportunity to show what they can do. I think that's probably the best possible outcome. I will say again, just to reiterate, that when John Steven has come into the games, it hasn't been like a situation where the game is on the line. And that's definitely a different dynamic than coming in when the game is close or at the beginning of the game. I mean, he's been in a 41-0 game, and he's been in a game that was I can't even remember what it was when he went in, but I think it was probably a 30-point separation when he came into the Mississippi State game. Will Kidd, I'm sorry, but you can't tell me KJ isn't a better option than John Steven Jones. I think we covered that. Drew Bryant says our D-backs cannot run with a receiver. We have no DB speed. Some of the guys do, but some of them don't. Defensive back has been, and I mean, the whole defense has been a disappointment. I mean, early in the year, it's kind of happened the way I thought it would happen. As I was saying in the walk and talk, not everything came out the way I thought it would, but I did see the defense getting worse and worse as time progressed. Even though they've stayed relatively healthy, except for defensive end has been kind of an issue. Maybe the linebacker a little bit, but yeah, I mean, they've just kind of gotten worse and worse. I mean, there's no reason, even if they're bad, even if they're young, giving up 460 rushing yards and over 600 yards of offense to Mississippi State at home, there's just absolutely no excuse for that. I don't care how young this team is on defense. Chris Carlson says the delayed decision and lack of adjustment has lost any support I wanted to give to the guy. Each week feels, Chris, like a new experiment. I mean, it really does. And this is the same. I mean, it's an experiment. John Steven Jones, KJ, how are they going to go with that? No better way than to show you are in over your head than indecision on the plays. Indecision that plays out the way Morris has. Good grief. David Shaw, I will say this, Chris, you don't find many people out there who's just like, and that's what would be a concern for Chad, I think, because once you lose the fans, it's really hard to get them back. And you don't find many people that are out there. You do find some, but most people aren't like, yeah, he just needs another year. Most of the arguments against it are, well, where's the money going to come from? He's just in year 2, how's recruiting going to shake out? Those seem to be more the excuses for keeping him versus, you see positive play on the field or you see reason to be encouraged. It's weird because it's just year 2. And I've never been in a situation like this. You do see more and more across the country teams getting, moving on fast. I mean, Willie Taggart's out after less than 2 years. Ellis Johnson at Southern Miss. Now, these are different situations because he took over Florida State, which was in a pretty good situation under Jimbo, even though I think they only won 7 games the year he left. But before that, they were obviously in a good situation, recruiting at a very high level. With Southern Miss, when Ellis Johnson took over for Larry Fedora, I mean, they were winning 11, 12 games a year, and then he comes in and they go 0-12, and of course, he's out of there. This is a different situation. He's coming into a situation where, they weren't winning. They had obviously started cycling down under Brett Bielema the last year. David Shaw says losing Dorian Gerald in the first quarter of the first game really hurt this defense. Absolutely. I think it impacted, McTelvin and Agim, teams being able to double team him more because that was going to be a pretty good combo having those two guys side by side. Dorian was coming off the ball extremely fast. McTelvin still has, I think, 5.5 sacks this year, which is pretty good for an interior defensive lineman, but he could have had a really good season with a guy like Dorian Gerald next to him. And, I mean, you're left, you got Gabe Richardson in there, Matteo Soli, who was your best option at end for so long with a club on his hand. He didn't have opposable thumb over here. I mean, it was just a ball. And that's your best option at end. That says a lot. It's kind of like the same thing with offense. You got the numbers right on offense. You've got 16 scholarship offensive linemen, heading into camp. and your best option at right guard is a true freshman. Chris Carlson says Musselman showed fire on the sideline, and I loved it. Yes, he did. Kevin Seaman says, agree. John Stephen Jones or KJ should have been in the game at the start of the second quarter at the very latest. Neither of them played a down when the game was remotely close. Clinton Stacy Patterson says, where are we at with linebacker recruiting? They're looking like JUCO, grad transfer at this point. I mean, they put a lot of eggs into that Whitehaven trio, and things just didn't work out with that in the end. That is another thing, with John Chavis, he gets $1.5 million a year. It's the worst defense in the SEC right now. There are not any interior linebacker commitments, and last year they only got one interior linebacker commitment. So you just don't see a lot of $1 million defensive coordinators who are doing that. Now, I think we all respect what John Chavis has done in the 42-year coaching career he's had, but the results at Arkansas have not even not even close to warrant paying $1.5 million a year for what he's produced so far. It just hasn't. And I think that maybe some of that is, people say like games passed him by and stuff like that. I don't know about that. But I do know that he had a lot better talent at Tennessee and LSU than he had at Texas A&M even towards the end there. Even though Texas A&M would sack, they had a lot of sacks while he was there. But overall total defense, scoring defense wasn't quite as good the last couple of years there. And obviously Arkansas has been the worst defense in the SEC the last 2 years. Kevin Stevens says, very excited about the future of the basketball program. I believe he will coach this team up to a good season. Not great, but we will see just how good of a coach we have found. The future with his recruits coming in is very bright. I want to see if they win some games that they're not supposed to win. So far, Chad Morris has not won any games that he's first of all, he's lost games that he's supposed to win, but he hasn't won any games or really competed in any games against teams that he's not supposed to beat. Maybe Texas A&M last couple of years, and maybe there's a little bit more into that with his history, John Chavis's history, some of that kind of stuff, Rakeem Boyd. Mark O'Banion says, after this week's loss, it will be official. We will have hit rock bottom. It keeps feeling like, I think Danny had a good analogy. He was just like, it's like hitting, you keep thinking you're hitting the ground, but you just keep hitting branches on your way down to the ground. But, I don't know if they've hit rock bottom or if they're just still there and haven't bounced off yet. It's just like the ball just kind of splattered at the bottom. It's not bouncing back. Clinton Stacy Patterson says we will not lose this week. Kevin Seaman says, hey, Trey, any idea who Moody will choose? I think things look good for Arkansas, but like I was saying, I don't cover recruiting for basketball a whole lot. Danny would be a better person to ask. We have him on Mondays for that, but I do think it's interesting that I don't know. It's just hard to say right now. He's got 3 teams. I think you would put the home state school. I will say this: Juwan Howard the other day, when he mentioned Moses Moody and like 2 or 3 other recruits in his press conference, and then was like, I think he was genuinely surprised. People say like he was doing it on purpose. I think it was genuinely like, oh, I'm not supposed to say that. But I've never seen a coach do that before. That's literally the first time I've seen that violation committed. Even the most casual fan knows that you can't publicly comment on prospective student athletes. You just can't. That was weird. I like Juwan Howard. I think he's a nice guy. I think he's probably end up doing a good job there. But that was just, I've never seen that. I've literally never seen that in 17 years. A coach just openly comment on prospective student athletes. Kevin Stevens says, hey, you understand there. Sorry. Drew Bryant says, wondering the same thing. Scott Whitlow says, Arkansas woo pig suey. Scott Stater Patterson says, I have heard Moody to Michigan. I've heard Moody to Arkansas. I've heard all kinds of things. Clinton Stacy Patterson says, hope not, though. Danny West says, hog hunting. Big embarrassment if we lose to him, says Gabriel Johnson. Kevin Stevens says, we got ideas for Danny West, Wild West recruiting show. That's not bad. West is the best at hog hunting. West recruiting name, hog sniping. Hate to say it, but it's about time to come and destroy our team. And Chad's job, says Matthew Philpott. Wow. Will Kidd says, who gives this team the best option to build or grow around KJ or John Stephen Jones? Everyone knows the answer is KJ, so why start John Stephen Jones? Give KJ every opportunity to learn, grow, and gain experience for the future. I think they could have really lit a fire into this team naming KJ the starter. And even if KJ is a starter, I can see, hey, hey, let's make sure we prepare for John Stephen Jones. Maybe KJ's not having a good day passing or something like that. Like we said, he can be erratic at times throwing the ball. A lot better in these last few practices than I've seen him early in the year. But you might need them both. You might just need them both. Matthew Philpott says, KJ or John Stephen Jones, it's your choice. James Matthew Nolan says 42-17 Western Kentucky. Wow, that would be quite damning if that happened. Do you think Morris will be fired by Monday if he loses to Western Kentucky? I don't think that would be a very good situation. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say that he's going to be fired on Monday or walking off the field or something like that. I think it would be a really bad situation. He did not look like a coach on Wednesday that was real concerned about, what his job status was. And maybe he's not. Maybe he's been assured that, hey, you got time. We like what you're doing in recruiting. We know you got a young team. You got time. Maybe that's what he's hearing behind the scenes. I don't know. But I think a lot of people looking from the outside looking in are just like, this would be really bad. All right, everybody. I think we pretty much covered everything. Cody Hawkins says, outside of young talent on the football team, Knox, Burks, Henry, etc., can you name one positive out of the season thus far? Connor Limpert's been, 12 of 15 on field goals? Terry Roy says, if KJ started this season, Arkansas is bowl bound. I don't know about that. I mean, I think they might have some more wins, though. But I still think that KJ needed some development. And maybe he's the best option now, yes, but I think he maybe needed some development. All right, everybody, I want to remind you one last time, there's plenty of ways to watch and listen. Be sure to sign up at HawgSports.com, first of all. I mean, you get CBS All Access for free as long as you're subscribed to HawgSports.com. We're not raising prices or anything like that. It's $9.95 a month. As long as you're paying the full subscription price, I think it's like $107.40. I don't know why it's that for an annual subscription. But as long as you're paying that, you get CBS All Access for free, which is a $99 value, in addition to getting the best Razorback coverage with the best insider news from your number one independent source on the Razorbacks at HawgSports.com. So a great time to sign up for HawgSports.com and get that special offer. We're always on Facebook Live. If you haven't thrown us a thumbs up, go ahead and throw us a thumbs up now. We certainly appreciate that. Be sure to follow the page. Share the content with somebody you think might like it if you enjoy the content. Going to upload to YouTube immediately after. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit the notifications bell so you're notified every time we upload a new video, and throw us a like if you like the content. Available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, just about everywhere you can get a podcast, we're available. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, be sure to throw us a 5-star review. Say something nice if you like the content. If you don't worry about it. But if you do, we'd certainly love to have that from you. So for Keith Grayson, for Pete Roulier, and for all of you and your questions, we thank you. This has been Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, and we'll catch you next time.